live. Okay, so yet again, if it's not something going wrong with the Zoom, I'm not doing a presentation, so let's try this again. This is Why with One Stop. I'm Sam Hayes. Guess what else went wrong? I forgot to turn on the video and forgot to turn on the microphone. Oh well, we'll just start again. I'm also streaming this live to YouTube, so that was probably really fun, but hey, winning in life. So thanks so much for joining me today. We're going to go over a little bit about what we learned and how to fix things in the month of May. Here's a bit about me. I've been doing this for over 22 decades in Southern California. I've assisted with over 7,000 transactions. I'm a risk management focused TC, CAR certified transaction coordinator, forms trainer, realtor, notary, all around CAR forms nerd, and always have something exciting happening on one of my Zoom calls. It's just my talent. My mission statement is my job is to create a defendable, risk management focused, and well documented file in compliance with DRE, broker, and statutory requirements. Through the services that I offer, I provide additional bandwidth to the independent agents and brokers. I assist by freeing up their time, energy to pursue and focus on their business generation goals. Okay, so one of the big things that I've run into a lot this past month is we have trustees that actually know more than we think. Typically, everybody goes to, well, they're a trustee, they're exempt. Not always. There's a lot of properties in California that are in trusts due to the fact that there are sellers that the value, price point, is financial benefit. The other thing is, if you haven't lived there for a year, supposedly you're also exempt from disclosures. But what if you know enough? What if that seller has information? One of the issues with all of this is the fact that material fact and fraud have no time frame on them, no exemptions. If you know, you know, and you need to share it. So one of the things to have a conversation with your clients is, have they ever lived in the property or spent extensive time period in the property? As I've used as an example before, we just went through a trustee sale for my mom when she passed over the past 18, well, she passed 18 months ago, but it's been 18 months doing all this. And I never lived in one of the properties, but I spent a lot of time there because my grandmother did. So I went ahead and did all of the regular disclosures. We were exempt as a trust situation, but we had knowledge. I'd been around that property since I was a small child. I knew enough, all the basics kind of. I knew some stories. I didn't know every detail. I reiterated, I've never lived in the property, but hey, here's what I know. You're going to want to verify with the broker of record of the file you're working on, your file checker, but it's always good to have a little extra conversation with your sellers when you're in a trustee situation, finding out what is their knowledge base, what is their experience. Another situation we had come up was, no, this trustee had never lived there, but they did help pay the bills. So they were aware of an insurance claim. They were aware of some payouts for some work that was done. We needed to make sure that was properly disclosed. Did they help with the move out? Did they clear out anything? Did they suddenly see something? I had a non-trustee sale years and years ago, but the garage had been packed. It was just so full. And when everything got moved out, there was a crack in the slab. So when you're emptying out these properties, prepare for the sales. The trustee may find out information they didn't have. And if they do, it's better to share it than not. Again, material fact, nobody's exempt from sharing that. And deciding what is material fact, we can't decide that for a buyer. You want to remember that your disclosures are the good, bad, and ugly. They are the history of the property. They're not the marketing pieces. They're the facts and information. And as much as you can use third-party documents to back up and clarify, better off you're going to be. Also, is there a neighbor who knows? You may have a neighbor, and then it's even worse when the neighbor goes and tells everybody after close some of the stuff. It may be worth having a conversation with a neighbor. If you know they have a shared gate, if you know they did tea, that neighbor is going to make sure they come and help, and something to be aware of. Talk to, again, your broker, file checker. You definitely can clarify hearsay, never occupied property, but if they know some information, you may want to share that. The insurance claims is a big one, as we all know. Finding insurance claims and how that can impact on your sale can be challenged. So make sure you're getting as much information as you can and doing a little bit of research. Is somebody currently keeping insurance on the property, which they should be? Contact that insurance provider, since that is the point of contact. They're making the payments. Find out. That may be another disclosure you can do if there's no other route. Again, always check with your file checker and broker of record of the file you're working on. There are a lot more individuals now are selling that are a little bit older. and they may not be as tech savvy. I've done more paper packet files in the past little bit. I brought it up also when I was talking to Bob Ledoux when we were talking about things last week. So it's something to take into account. That are you ready for it? Do you know how to do that? Do you know how to prep the docs, the highlighting, everything else? I do. That's how we started. Some of this is coming circling back to what is the easiest thing for your client. Do you have a system to meet this? Do you know how to print this? Do you have a printer? Not everybody has a printer anymore. That is something I went ahead and I have invested in because I do see the handiness of it, and it's paid off multiple times. So make sure you're working with a TC or somebody where you have access, knows how to prep the documents, knows how to separate out the stacks. Do you have systems to meet this need? Yes. Are you working with family members? Is there somebody? I have a couple of sales right now. We have some older clients with younger family members. They sometimes can sit and do the glide instead of doing paper files, or they may not be able to be available. It's one of those you're going to have to find out. So even if you have an older client who's not as tech savvy, they may have a trusted family member or friend who can come over and walk them through some of this and be helpful. But be prepared. There is an older generation that is starting to sell properties because they just don't want to deal with managing all of it or financial needs or other reasons. And that is going to have to adjust how, when we're used to doing docs so electronically now, especially after the pandemic, and how we're doing it to meet their needs may not always match. So be ready to be flexible and look for solutions. How can we make this as easy as possible on everyone? Your commission is not part of the contract. You are not party to the contract. The agents are not in there. Well, Sam, but they're giving the credit in the BRBC. No, 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 no. Okay. That is a credit to the buyer from the seller to pay you. You have your own contract with the buyer and the buyer's agent. You have your own contract with the seller and the seller's agent. So we got the RLA, that's our seller and seller's agent contract. That's where that money's discussed. We've got the BRBC, the buyer broker, that's between the buyer's agent and the buyer. That's where that money, the commission, is discussed. Then we have our purchase contract, and that's where a credit may be given from seller to buyer, but seller is not paying buyer's agent. That's big change. Giving a credit, well, I put it on addendum. The lender said an addendum. Well, the lender's wrong. Well, escrow said they're fine. They're wrong too. To properly document your file, we need to change the two other contracts based on how the credits are being given. Then, if there's a credit between a seller and a buyer, because they're the only ones party to that purchase contract, that's an addendum. Otherwise, we need a modification of terms on the BRBC, or we need a modification of terms on the RLA. But it is not something out of the contract. You're not party to the contract. Your money's not party to the contract. I know it's a huge brain shift. It's one we fight all the time, but we want to make sure this is properly documented, and we want to be in compliance for DRE audits. Verify all with your broker of record, but you're going to need to be changing one of your two contracts, because remember, buyer and seller are the only ones that are part of the purchase agreement, but you have your agreements as their agents, and that's where your commission is. Those are the ones that have to be modified for any credits you may be giving. How many owners are on the vesting? Are you pulling your property profile? I cannot sing the praises of our title friends any louder. We need them right now. There's a lot of things where refis happen. They pulled it out of the trust, put it back into the trust. Maybe we had to add mom and dad on to be able to refi and get the approval for the loan, but they weren't going to stay. It was just to get the deal. But hey, they're still on title right now, and we've taken the listing. So guess what? Everybody has to sign. Double check before you go write up that listing agreement. Make sure you've got the right info. Who's all on title? Make sure we've got all the deeds. What if something was recorded that, oh, well, I've inherited the property, but I owe my sister 30,000 off of this, or I owe my brother some money off of this. Find out who all is impacted. Ask questions. Talk to your clients. Well, it's in an LLC. Don't worry. Well, who all signs for the LLC? Do you have proof of the documents? Well, I have a power of attorney. Let me see that power of attorney. You need to be getting these documents. It's in your RLA, your residential listing agreement, within 5 days. You're supposed to have all their financials and all their info. Within 3 days, you're supposed to have proof of their signing authority. You need to have that on file. That also then needs to be provided by the party signing on behalf of the entity to the other party in escrow. Escrow's job is not to give us proof that people have signing authority. It's the individuals that are signing on behalf of entities. They're supposed to give everybody proof. Well, Sam, we don't, that's private information. I don't want that to make. There is a specific page in any entity created documents that are to be shared to show signing authority. All the powers that be and all the legislation, all the things know that we have to show proof. That is just like having a license showing you have proof. That's your identity. That's a document. This is not telling me who gets the cats. This isn't telling me how many millions are in there. I just need to know who is approved from that document that supports the entity. So double check this. I'm seeing this come up all the time right now. I've had multiple deals where suddenly we had three extra sellers, four extra sellers. You don't have an executed listing, let alone an executed contract, technically, without all those signatures. That's a loss of commission for a lot of work, potentially. And I live in worst case scenario land. So make sure you're double checking and getting that info and taking care of what you need to do so that you can have a better listing. You can come from a place of knowledge and we know how to properly document your file. So there's no questions and you can focus on taking care of your clients and generating those referrals that we all base our business off. TOPA. Okay. So if you have anybody in the property over the age of 18 for even 1 minute after that contract is executed, they are considered a tenant. It needs to be noted. We need to have a TOPA. Well, the kids are moving out. Well, the brother and sister have been there. Well, it's a family friend. I need a TOPA. Well, they're not really a tenant, they just kind of hang out. I need a TOPA. Now, the other thing that's happening is a lot of tenants are purchasing and they're purchasing the property that's already in. You're also going to want a TOPA because technically that buyer is still a tenant. One of the things that gets clarified though on the TOPA is here at section 1, TOPA 1C. This notifies everybody the buyer is the tenant in the property. So if the tenant doesn't vacate because the escrow doesn't close or whatever, the verbiage in the TOPA above, which is stating that, hey, if seller can't get those tenants out and they're supposed to deliver the property unoccupied, they owe the buyer a reasonable amount. Well, what's reasonable? You have to set that. They owe that money. So with that, this clarifies, hey, tenant, if you didn't decide to buy, I'm not paying you back for those inspections. You don't have to do it. This is a protection for both sides, and it's documentation clarifying about what are we doing about the deposits? What are we doing about the rent? How is that getting transferred? All of these things. You want to be using this document anytime anybody who is not vested in title is in that property for even 1 minute after you've got an executed contract. Verify all with the broker of record of the file you're working on, but TOPAs are really important. They've got some great bits in there to help clarify and set up some clear information about the transfer of the tenants, the leases, the estoppels, who's going to vacate, how are we going to handle this. And with all the changes in tenancy laws over the past few years, it's really important to make sure we've got that very clear from the get-go so everybody knows what to expect. Another one, power of attorney. Well, they have a power of attorney. They're exempt from disclosures. So power of attorney is I am now signing on behalf of the person who's given me that power. I have now taken on, I am that person. But I need to sign everything stating I'm signing it as their power of attorney because otherwise I'm forging their signatures. I had a situation where somebody has power of attorney for an invalid parent and they signed everything in the parent's name but didn't want to go back and do the power of attorney because they thought they were forging the signature and trying to get them to understand, hey, actually, you did forge the signature here without that power of attorney disclosure, and then your name, you're just signing their name on their behalf and it's not valid. That's forgery. This allows to clarify, I have been empowered by whoever to sign this power of attorney. Now, something to take into account with the power of attorney. If there is any way possible for the individual to sign, it is much better to have them sign than use the power of attorney. Power of attorney is if they are not no longer maybe mentally capacity, have lost mental capacity, but still here. They also may be traveling to a point that there is no Wi-Fi. They're completely off grid. Military, a lot of times, if they're out on maneuvers, those type of things, extensive bits and pieces. If anybody, though, is able to get to, and as we know, I mean, I sat at the bottom of the Acropolis 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, and I had Wi-Fi. And with DocuSign, we're able to do so many things, consulates, whatnot. There's a lot of ways to get around this, but if you have to use a power of attorney, make sure title has reviewed it prior to make sure it meets all the needs for transferring real property and that's properly executed. Make sure we've got the correct signature block. I am seeing more trust giving power of attorney, which I have questions about. And it's always good to make sure that's double checked by title, that we have that correctly handled as well. But with all of that said, they're not exempt. Any information that seller would have had, that power of attorney is now responsible for. So doing disclosures with the power of attorney is a lot of responsibility and a lot of issues. So double check all that with your file checker, broker of record, and also run it past title. It's a great tool. I'm a notary. I'm happy to help with it. I totally understand the need for it, but make sure you're not abusing it and make sure you are using it only when necessary. It truly is a lot of responsibility, and we want to make sure we got clarity and able to communicate what's being done for it. This one keeps coming up because there's a lot of things. Do not put the home inspection in your name. Put it in the name of your clients. Or if you have to put on behalf of the clients, you do not want this in your name. And if for some reason your name is the one on that inspection, your buyer needs to sign that they received it because I have no proof they've seen it any other way. If they're ordering it, which they are supposed to do, buyer investigations, part of the contingencies, then that's one thing because they have talked to that individual, they've selected that individual. Well, what if it's your name and you say, "Oh, I've got a guy," and that guy is not so good, and you didn't give three options, you just said, "Use my guy." By doing that, acting as with your fiduciary, acting as an agent, you may be providing an unspecified warranty, an endorsement of that individual. And with you being the expert, the one with the license on the transaction, that's a lot of liability if something goes wrong. You want to put everything in your client's names as much as possible. It is their file, it is their investigation, it is their document. You can be agent of record, you can put by agent. If your name's on there, though, I'm always going to ask them to sign it to acknowledge receipt. I want proof that they saw the reports on file. I also do it if we're on the other side. If the buyer's agent orders an inspection and the buyer's agent's name's on there, I want the buyers to sign that report. I want the buyers to sign that estimate. I want proof that buyer saw that information and I want it on file to protect all parties in the transaction. I'm a big nerd about that. So don't put them in your name. Don't use your name. It's not yours. You're not buying it. Put it in your client's name. I hate this form. I straight out hate this form. I think it is the dumbest form on the planet. So the ASA, the additional signature addendum. This is a form that you would use to if you have more than two signers on a document. With DocuSign, I'm able to get multiple signatures. I've had 9 people initial sign documents. I know there are lines on there. I know it is not the best practice. I understand that, but I would much rather go before a lawyer, a judge, a jury showing I had everybody sign the same document in the same page somewhere that they all saw the same information than this, which can be separated from it. You're just listing out documents. How do I have proof they actually saw the documents? You have to list every single document that's going to be on there as well. You need to note that this, and then for each document, so for every TDS, you need an ASA. For the SPQ, you need an ASA. So it's additional documentation added to the file and then making sure you've got all of them to match up. It's a lot of extra work. I'm a big believer in let's DocuSign. Everybody got the same envelope. Everybody signed at the same time. I've got proof and I just kind of wiggle over and squish the signatures. Check with your broker of record and your file checker, but I truly believe this form does more harm than good. And trying to make sure you've got all the copies of them, make sure they've seen every single thing and matching them up is crazy making and trying to chase down. So be careful, but again, work with your broker of record and how they want to do this. Yeah, I'm just going to use a slide every month. Just do your AVID. I mean, the fact that there's a building with it just cracked me up, but make sure you're doing AVID. It's a situation I've got several times. TDS, page 3, section 3, listing agreement, listing agent, excuse me. If you mark C AVID, AVID to follow, in the RPA, I believe it's in section 14 discussing disclosures. If you do that and the AVID is not attached and you're on the listing side, that is an incomplete AVID. You have just guaranteed 5 days from receipt of your AVID for the disclosure and contingency. And if it's been removed, you reopen the contingency and allow them to go ahead and cancel the contract based on your AVID. Be careful. That does not go into effect on the buyer side. That's only on the listing side. But if you're doing that, CAVID, AVID to follow, blah, 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 and it's not attached to your TDS, you are not, your clock has not started yet. Double check, talk to your broker of record, get in the habit of doing one as quickly as possible. Let's see. Okay, a couple hints, tips, hot tips. Don't over investigate. Remember, again, especially with those inspections, as we were talking about putting your name, the buyer needs to do the investigation. We're here to facilitate, we're here to get them connected, but we cannot choose what's important to them. We cannot choose what to investigate. You're going to want to discuss that with your broker of record, file checker, but be careful. Don't go out of bounds. Oh, I'll go down and grab your permit. No, you won't. What if you miss one document? Oh, I'll grab your HOA. No, don't. What if you miss one page? You are taking on responsibility that while we want to be of service, and I'm totally here for it, there needs to be boundaries so that you can maintain and keep providing that service. And this is important because this is their purchase. They've got to be doing the investigations for it. Get your solar documentation ASAP. Ask the listing agent if they have it. There's delays going to be happening. It's always a hard time with transferring solars. We all know. Get that info up front. We are going to have, there are two trainings going on June 10th. If you are interested, you can watch it on the Legal Live. That's on CAR. That's one, if you're a CAR member, they will have a Legal Live. Then there's one that I'll be taking as a car forms trainer. I'm going to literally come right off of that meeting and go straight to talking and just sharing my notes with you. It's going to be a real rough cut. We'll do that next month. And then I'll have a fancier page by page kind of disclosure afterwards. And the BRBC is still in flux. It's trying to figure out if we have to share that, if we don't. Be careful. Seller can request to see parts of it to make sure, because remember, if it's not correctly executed, they don't have to give the credit. They don't have to pay you, and neither does the buyer. We're doing this for 3 months because that matches the legislation for AB 2992, which is California wide, January 1st. Every purchase agreement in California, it doesn't matter if vacant land, commercial, multi-unit, whatever, besides a residential 1 to 4, you've got to have a buyer broker agreement in place prior to execution of the contract. Make sure it's done right. Make sure you're not asking for more of the credit than what you're getting in the BRBC. That automatically voids it. Make sure you've actually clarified where you're looking. This whole state of California, unless you're at a certain price point where you've got private jets and helicopters, it's kind of not really going to be able to show in the same day. I mean, between showing San Francisco County and San Diego County in the same day, it's kind of hard to do. So that can bring that into an issue. Double check. Talk to your broker, file checker, but make sure you're getting your BRBC done correctly. I want to make sure you get paid for all the hard work you're doing. It's hard enough to negotiate it, let alone make sure the document's correct. I don't want to give anybody wiggle room so that you're not getting compensated for all you're doing. And as we just discussed real quick, so we're going to start. You're not party of the contract. That's all that stuff we were talking about. No, you're not sending the notice to perform. You're not getting the inspections. Your commission's not in there. You're not part of the contract. You are facilitating the contract. So we'll talk all about that. The 11th and 18th are my two hot ones next month. That's going to be about those notes. I'm going to come right off that training and have a lot of energy to share with you. I'll probably be over caffeinated. Apologies in advance. The following week, I'll break it down and get it into each individual form so that we can go line by line of what you should know. I believe there are 4 new forms coming and waiting to find out what they've done about a couple of updates. The BRBC, how it's going to be presented, was still in flux last time I checked. And then, of course, at the end of the month, we always recap. Here's what went wrong, but here's how we fixed it, so you know how to move forward and do better the next month. So we can do better moving forward. As always, thank you so much for being here. You can tell I like to talk about this stuff till I am blue in the face. Feel free to contact me anytime, even if I'm not the TC on the file. I'm available cell, email 619-993-7264. I will tell you to verify all with your broker of record and file checker. I am sharing from my experience as a car forms trainer, TC, all of that fun stuff. Do you have a topic you want to talk about? Give me a call. Do you need a presentation to your office for the new forms? Give me a call. We can do a video in person if you're here in San Diego. I even go up to Riverside, sometimes out to Palm Springs. Otherwise, I'll have videos up here on YouTube. Please like, follow, subscribe, share, all those fun things you're supposed to do. I'm Sam Hayes. This was Why with One Stop. Thank you for stopping by today and sharing some time with me. I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to call me with any questions, like I said, and I will see you next week to talk about why you're not party to stuff. Stop it. It's not your file. It's your buyer's file. You're helping facilitate. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.